Hey, it's Coach Reeves, and today we're going to graph absolute value inequalities on a number line. Just a couple of things to remind you of before we get going too far. Absolute value is always positive. If absolute value is always positive, can absolute value be less than a negative number? To be less than a negative means you're still negative. So can absolute value be less than a negative number? And the answer is no. Absolute value cannot be less than a negative number. You would have to tell me that this is a no solution situation. So when do we make this decision if it's a no solution or not? Well, first you remember you've got to get absolute value by itself and then look at the right side before you make a decision. So if there's anything in the front of absolute value or at the back of absolute value, I need you to move it to the other side of the inequality before you make a decision. Get the absolute value brackets by itself, look at the right side before you make a decision on whether it's no solution or it's a workable problem. Okay, let's do a couple examples together. Problem number 1 on your worksheet. My absolute value is by itself. So we're going to work it two ways. All right, so we're going to come in here and we're going to say V over 10 is less than or equal to 1. We have to work it two ways. The second way we're going to work it, we're going to say that V over 10. Now when you work it the second way, I'm going to need you, remember, I'm going to need you to flip your symbol the other way. Why are we doing this? Because I need you to take the opposite. And taking the opposite is like multiplying times negative 1. So the opposite here is going to get me a negative 1. And remember the rules. If you multiply by a negative, you're going to have to flip your symbol. So we're going to flip our symbol and point it the other way. So when you're setting up your problems, the second time, I'm going to need you to flip your symbol and take the opposite. The first time, you just copy the problem. Second time, flip your symbol, take the opposite. Now let's do the math. To move the 10 from the denominator, we're going to multiply times 10. We're going to multiply times 10. This will cancel. This will tell me that V is less than or equal to a positive 10. Multiply times 10. Multiply times 10. This will cancel. This is going to say V is greater than or equal to negative 10. Now we want to go to our graph. We want to go to a number line. We want to graph. Who is smaller, a positive 10 or a negative 10? Obviously the negative 10 is smaller, so the negative 10 will go to the left. We're going to put a negative 10 to the left. We have a bar underneath, so we're going to put our circle here, but since we have a bar underneath, we're going to close it. We're going to have a closed circle. This means the color it in. All right, this says V is greater than. V is greater than, so we're going to go to the right. Now, I want to try to teach you a trick if you can do this. I don't know if your teachers ever taught you this, but when you solve these, if you could put your variable, if you can end up with your variable on the left-hand side, only if it's on the left-hand side, this inequality symbol will tell you which way to go with your graph. Only if your variable is on the left, you can look at this inequality symbol and it'll tell you which way to go on your graph. It's a little hint, okay? Over here, I have a positive 10. So we'll put our positive 10 over here. We have a bar underneath. So when we have a circle, we're going to have to color it in and we'll have a closed circle. It says that my V's are less than. They're getting smaller. They're less than 10. So we're going to go this way. Okay? Now remember what I said. If your variable is on the left side, this little symbol can tell you which way your arrow is going to go. It only works if the variable is on the left. Okay? All right, so there's your solution. How do you write your answer? You could write your answer since they're going towards each other, you could write the solution like this, and. Another way you may see the solution is with your variable in the middle. You could say negative 10 is less than or equal to v less than or equal to a positive 10. Either way is fine. And there is your graph of your solution. Let's try another example. All right, so we're going to go to number 3. My absolute value. Here's my absolute value. There's nothing in front. There's nothing in the back. It's by itself, so I can work this problem. The first time, we're going to copy it as we see it. We're going to say negative 6a is greater than or equal to 42. The second time we work it, we're going to say negative 6a is what? We have to flip our symbol. Remember, the second time, we have to flip our symbol and take the opposite. So this will turn into less than or equal to negative 42. Are you with me? All right, so let's do some math. We're going to divide by negative 6. This is going to cancel, and that leaves me with an A. But do you remember the rule we just talked about? If you multiply or divide both sides by a negative, what do you need to do? You have to flip your inequality symbol the other way. Since we're dividing by a negative, I need to flip this symbol and I need to point it the other direction. 42 divided by negative 6 is going to be a negative 7. Over here, we're going to divide by what? We're going to divide by negative 6 again. This will cancel. That leaves me with A. But since we're dividing by a negative again, we're going to flip our symbol. And this is going to be pointed the other way. Negative 42 divided by negative 6 is a positive 7. When we go to graph this, negative 7 is smaller. So negative 7 goes to the left. We put a circle. We're going to put a circle on our number. There's a bar underneath, so we're going to have a colored in or a closed circle. Do you remember the hint I told you? If my variable's on the left, this little inequality symbol will tell you which way to go. We can go to the left. It says my A values are less, and as they get lesser, they get smaller. They go to the farther left on the number line. All right, so then we go to a 7. It's a positive 7, so we're going to put over here in our positive 7. We're going to put a circle on our number. Since there's a bar underneath, we're going to color it in. We're going to have a closed circle. It says A is greater. The values get greater as I go to the right. Or, remember what we said? We said if the variable's on the left, this little symbol could tell you which way to go. Only if your variable's on the left. Now in this situation, when my graphs go away from each other, when they go away from each other, we use the word or. This is your solution, and this is your graph of your solution. Okay? So when they go towards each other on the last problem, they were and. When they go away from each other, it's the word or. Okay? Sometimes I'm a little goofy about this, but one maybe way to remember this is when you're rowing a boat, the oars stick out. So when you see oars, when you see the word or your graph where the oars stick out of the boat, they go away from each other, that's another way to determine it's an or your graph is going away from each other. I know it's a little goofy. All right, next problem. Absolute value. Is my absolute value by itself? No. I've got stuff in front. I need to move this stuff so I get my absolute value by itself. So step one. Step one is we're going to move this 1 to the other side. We're going to subtract 1. This will cancel. That's going to leave me with 2 times the absolute value of negative 7 plus 6n less than or equal to 11 minus 1 is a 10. My absolute value is still not by itself. I still need to do some work. So we're going to come in and we're going to do this. We're going to say divided by 2. Divided by 2. This will cancel. That's going to leave me with the absolute value of negative 7 plus 6n is less than or equal to a 5. Now, again, we're going to have to work it 2 ways. We're going to work it the first time just like we see it. We're going to say negative 7 plus 6n is less than or equal to 5. The second way, the second time we're going to work it, we're going to say negative 7 plus 6n. What do? We have to flip the symbol and point it the other way. And then we take the opposite also. Now we're going to solve these inequalities. We're going to do a little math. Plus 7. Plus 7. This will cancel. 6n is less than or equal to 12. Divide by 6. Divide by 6. N is less than or equal to 2. Over here, plus 7. Plus 7. 6n is greater than or equal to the number 2. Divide by 6. Divide by 6. N is greater than or equal to 1/3. 2 over 6 will reduce to 1/3. So we need to come up here to our number line. Let me create a number line for us. So who is smaller, 2 or 1/3? 1/3 is smaller. Smaller number should go to the left. So we're here at 1/3. We're going to put a circle on it. There's a bar underneath, so we're going to color it in. We have a closed circle. It says my ends are getting greater or getting bigger. N is bigger than. So we're going to go to the right. Remember the little tip I showed you? If your variable's on the left, then the arrow, the inequality symbol will tell you which way to go. Then we're going to put our 2. Our 2 goes on the line. We're going to put a circle on it. There's a bar underneath. So we're going to shade it in. We're going to color it in. And we now have a closed circle. It says that n is less than. My n's are getting smaller, so we're going to go to the left. So when we said that when you go towards each other, what are we going to say? We're going to say and. We can write it this way. That n is less than 2 and n is greater than a 1/3. The other way you could write it is 2 less than or equal to n less than or, backwards. Sorry. 1/3 and then less than or equal to 2. There's your other option to write it. Okay? Last example. Number 15. Here's my absolute value. Is absolute value by itself? No. I've got to move this stuff to get my absolute value by itself. Step 1. We're going to move the 1. We're going to go minus 1, minus 1. We're going to get, this is going to cancel. That's going to leave me with negative 4 times the absolute value of 1 minus 4r is less than or equal to 28. Still, absolute value is not by itself. So we're going to divide by -4. This will cancel. So that leaves me with the absolute value of 1 minus 4r. But I divided both sides. I divided both sides by a negative. The rule, remember, the rule is you have to flip your symbol if you divide by a negative. So we're going to have to point this the other way. This is going to become greater than or equal to 28 divided by -4 is a -7. This is a workable problem. Absolute value can be greater than a negative number. Okay? If it was pointed the other way, then we'd have to shut it down. It wouldn't work. But absolute value can be bigger than a negative number. So we have to work it two ways. First time, you're going to copy it just like you see it. You're going to say 1 minus 4r is greater than or equal to -7. Second time, 1 minus 4r. Uh-oh. What do we do on the second time? We have to flip the symbol and take the opposite. That becomes a +7. Flip the symbol and take the opposite the second time. We're going to solve the inequality. We're going to say -1 minus 1. This will cancel. -4r is greater than or equal to -8. Be careful. We're going to divide by -4. We're dividing by a -4. This will cancel r. But we divided by a negative. That's another flip situation. You've got to point your your symbol the other way. Point your symbol the other way. -8 divided by -4 is a +2. Doing the math. -1 minus 1 cancels. -4r less than or equal to 7 minus 1 is 6. Be careful. Going to divide by -4 again. -4. This is going to cancel. R. Since we divided by a negative, we're going to flip the symbol and we're going to reduce this. This is going to become a -3/2. Now we have to graph this. My graph is going to look like this. Who's smaller, 2 or -3/2? The smaller guy always goes to the left on the number line. So we're going to be here at -3/2 on our number line. We're going to put a circle. There's a bar underneath, so we're going to close it in. We're going to color it in. This says r is greater than. R is greater than, so we're going to go to the right where they get greater, they get bigger. Here's our +2. We're going to put a circle. It says there's a bar underneath, so we should color it in. We have a closed circle. It says my R values are less than, getting smaller, less than 2, so we're going to go to the left. When they go towards each other, this is an AND situation. That's an AND situation. Or you could say -3/2 is less than R, less than or equal to R, less than or equal to a 2. Either one. All right, there's about 4 examples. This should get you started. What's the scary part? Well, the scary part is you need to work it 2 ways, and on the second inequality, you have to flip your symbol and take the opposite. And along the way, you could be dividing by some negatives, and anytime you have to divide both sides of the inequality by a negative, you got to flip your symbol and point it the other way. If you're not careful, the negatives can really hurt you. Please be attentive to details so you don't make those silly mistakes. All right, so good luck. Try the worksheet. Ask questions. It's okay if you get stuck. Just ask questions and we can get you unstuck. All right, good luck.